It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood and Dale McKee, ready to break it down, turn it over, look at it, talk about it, see what's what and what's up. How you doing, Dale?
Yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to I got my coastal buddy down, sports writer, owner of a newspaper down there, Hunter Dawkins.
That's the Gazebo Gazette?
He's got the Gazebo, yeah.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Let me hear you say that 3 times real fast.
Well, you know, he's coached a little football, a little basketball, worked for a couple congressmen. I mean,
dang gum.
you know, he's pretty big.
Ain't no
deal.
telling what we liable to get into tonight.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to get right into the show in here in a second, but he's going to be a great guest. He's going to talk about USM basketball and both sides, maybe a little bit USM baseball. We're going to talk a little bit about the Senior Bowl. He's going to talk about the Saints a little bit. He's going to give us his, his answer to who may win the Super Bowl.
Well, I tell you what, he's got as good a shot at picking it as anybody, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, since we got so much to talk about, let's get to it, Dale.
Okay.
Let's take a break to hear from our sponsors, and Dale and I will be back right after this commercial with tonight's guest, Hunter Dawkins of the Gazebo Gazette. We'll see y'all right after the break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
All right, welcome to the show, Hunter Dawkins. Hunter, you know, you've been on with us 2 or 3 times. Tell us a little bit about your background. I don't know, you know, this might be a first-time listener, which I don't believe because everybody's very loyal up here to us. So just tell us about your background a little bit, like, you know, where'd you come from?
Well, Dale and Marshall, it's good to be going with you guys again. Just to kind of briefly summarize, and as I told you before, Dale, me summarizing my background will take about 3 hours, but I know we got to cut that down a little bit shorter than that. But pretty much the low-end summary was that I was born down here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, where my backyard was the water usually. Now I was up actually a little bit farther north of the water, about 2 miles. But that being said, though, I grew up in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Played rec ball, went to school in the county, and then during my high school career, I went to St. Stanislaus, the Catholic school, all-boys school down here on the Gulf Coast. Played football and basketball. Met one of my great mentors, Jay Ladner, who's now the USM men's basketball coach. Coach Ladner and I, we developed a great friendship, and of course, you know, I was definitely running a lot of sprints, you know, after the basketball play too. But then I got a community scholarship to a school called Catholic University in Washington D.C. It's not widely known unless you live around the area, but it's right down the street from Georgetown, and we have the 3rd largest church in the world, the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception. We had some great alumni, great professors there, and I went to Catholic University. After 4 years, I fortunately graduated. It didn't take me a little longer, but it was just a little bit of a partying. Dale, I'm sure you remember what that life was like. But that being said,
I don't know what you're talking about. My mama's listening. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's right. But being in D.C., that brought out a little bit of my political wanted, my political direction that I really kind of was interested in as a young kid. And that's what I mean. I was a young kid. I didn't really know left and right very well. And I thought, hey, maybe get up there, get involved and get something, involvement in graduate school. I went to George Washington University, and I was working in Congress for about close to 4 or 5 years, and then I just had my mama come up, and she told me, she said, I want you home. And so sure enough, I came home. I was here for a little while after Katrina back in 2005 when I graduated. I came down for about 6 months. I was working for Jim Hood, the Attorney General's office, just for a brief little time, but then I moved back up to my graduate school in D.C., and I worked for Congressman Gene Taylor, who represented the Gulf Coast area. And then after that, when I came home, I started teaching. I got involved in teaching and coaching. I coached football. I was the offensive line coach at St. Stanislaus. We won the state championship. And then, of course, what happens when that your first year of coaching, you win the state championship, you think you know everything. But I was still a young kid, and then I of course made a move to. I went in between states to Tennessee and Louisiana, and that's when I had my son in Tennessee, and we then afterwards went to Louisiana. I was still coaching. I got the head basketball coaching job in Eunice, Louisiana, for a couple of years, and then kind of made the change because I came back home to the Gulf Coast, made the change in my career to the journalism industry. It was late nights, a lot of high school sports reporting here, there, and everywhere else, and kind of got my feet wet in that environment, and the opportunity opened up for me a couple of years to buy the paper. I went on that route, and here we are now. So that's the shortest summary I can give you, my friend.
Hey, you did great. You did great. You ought to package that, and send it to me so I can use that on my resume sometime.
Did you learn how to cook when you was in South Louisiana?
Well, I already did have a little bit because my dad went to school at Tulane.
There you go.
And so it was, but then again, though, the New Orleans people are a whole lot different from the rest of Louisiana when it comes to cooking. But that's just because I've been around the block with both of those areas.
Yeah.
And so, I knew a little bit of good stuff, but I also learned one of the most important things, Dale. I found out where the real crawfish are. Mm-hmm. The real crawfish that are absolutely the best you'll ever eat are in Eunice and in Iota, that area, central Louisiana, and that's the real crawfish farms up there.
Well, I'll have to, the next time somebody wants to have a crawfish bowl, we'll have to head for Eunice, Louisiana there.
Better take your checkbook where they hide this
now,
year.
Hunter, don't they have a famous junior college over there? It's really good in baseball, LSU Eunice. Is that a junior college?
They do. They have LSUE, which pretty much all the kids, Eunice is one of those towns, on Friday night, or actually the Thursday night before, is the pep rally. The community gets together. They have steak dinners, all this, that, and that. It's a big time. It's amazing. Me growing up in Mississippi with all these small towns, and then you go to Louisiana where it's just, town of less than 5,000 people, and they all get behind the football teams and the baseball teams, and it's definitely interesting on that, Dale.
Yeah, well, that's great. So, tell us something. We're gonna start with the USM Sports. Tell us about your thoughts on how the women and men's team is doing in basketball, and then we're gonna get into some NFL stuff.
Well, and I'll tell you this. I've been really impressed with the job that both Coach Joy and Coach Jay they've done this year because of the lack of resources that they have. And I don't necessarily mean the gyms and things, but what I mean is dealing with personnel. Joy's had a number of, issues with, people play, ladies playing this time, that time. They've really come together as of late, where I think they beat South Alabama the other night pretty good, and they have turned out to be a lot better than what I had originally thought and projected. But she's definitely done a decent job with what she's been given. Secondly, Coach Ladner, who I've known for almost 35 years, he continues to amaze me because that team really has lost a lot of the heart of personnel. I mean, they played, pretty much up until December without what I think is one of the best players in the Sun Belt, in Andre Carbello. And finally, when they get him back, then they lose him and Victor Hart, for the last 3 games. And people are shocked about, we're not really a road team. We're not. You see all these guys and girls on Twitter that are just throwing out these ducks, saying, we're just not. I said, well, when your back's against the wall and you don't have size, or you don't have some shooters, or you don't have different players on your team that make a difference, it's hard to get that camaraderie together and then being able to pull off victories against James Madison and Troy, and then a few significant road games. That's really been a great product of USM, and is what Coach Ladner has said is the true grit that Dr. Paul talked about.
All right. Do you want to briefly talk about USM baseball, the coaching change, and what you think might be in store for the Golden Eagles in baseball?
Well, Dale, Coach, I would say, the funniest thing about USM is this is the 4th coach they've had, and geez, Dale, probably since you've been in high school. So,
that's a long time.
No, it was actually grade school. I think Coach Taylor, who I got to know when I was going to college there, I had one of his classes, and I just pick his brain all the time. He was coaching baseball, and he's assistant AD, and he dressed really well. And he was a New Orleans native that had come up there and played football, I think, for Pavan back in the day.
You know where Coach Taylor went to high school, don't you? He went to high school at St. Stanislaus.
He did. Well, he's another famous one.
Sir,
Who's the other famous one? Doc Blanchard?
That's correct. Doc Blanchard. Absolutely. Hey. Old Mr. Doc.
Doc.
Got the perfect opportunity to meet him one time. Mr. Inside. So.
And Mr. Outside was Glenn Davis, was that it?
Glenn Davis.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Those little Army teams back in the 40s, man. Yeah. I'm glad you remember those playing days for those guys. Anyway. So anyway, well, that's great to know. But Coach Taylor, I think he took. I want to say he took over about 59, and they played it.
And that's the thing is, Coach O just represents the stability of the USM baseball program, and that's an important thing. Now there's a lot of different players this year because there was a lot of good kids or good guys drafted, and they're playing on Major League Baseball teams, which is what they deserve. USM deserves to have some talent, being able to play at that level. But I've got a little bit of inkling this year because I've got a lot of Coast kids on the team this year, including one of the guys that I was really close with his family, Peyton Lacey, who they recruited Southern did as a reliever, and I think he's going to be interesting to watch him play, and all the rest of them. Another Coast kid with Carson Pato. It's a lot of good fun going to these Southern games and watching them take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, the coach plays good baseball. I mean, they've got Van Cleve has been special the last few years down there in baseball for sure. And Dale.
Yeah. Well, Dale and Marshall, what I'm really surprised I haven't asked him about is And what I did get this year was I got credentials for the Senior Bowl this weekend.
Oh.
Boy, that's going to be a heck of a matchup. We're going to have some NFL coaches, players, with 6 kids that have some Mississippi ties there. It's going to be a good one. And I think y'all are going to like watch that on the NFL Network Saturday morning.
Yeah, well, it's fun sometimes just to watch practices. I know when Benito Jones was down there playing the year he came out of Ole Miss, I went down there and got to see the quarterback for the Eagles. And at the time, I said, well, he's a little bit taller than I thought he was. On TV, he looked shorter, but he was a little bit taller. And I got to see Kinlaw, the 49ers D tackle that played at Jones Junior College before he went to South Carolina. He was the number 1 draft choice of the 49ers back that year, too. And so there were some interesting people down there.
I'm telling you what, the four of the defensive players from Mississippi are going to be interesting to watch. You got McKinley Jackson from Texas A&M, who's that big old boy from George County. Then you got Cedric Johnson from Ole Miss. You got Jaden Carmody from Mississippi State. And then you got the best in the SEC on defense, Boogie Watson. It's going to be interesting to see what they show up and they provide, to watch at least on TV and being at the game.
So McKinley Jackson, time's gotten away with me on McKinley. I didn't know he was that far. I thought he was going to be back next year, but he's. I guess.
Well, I think he's now. What the ruling is if you're a junior but you declare the draft, they'll give you the pass on the senior. If you've extended your 4 years of eligibility.
I got you.
Right. Yeah, it's a 4-year deal, but that pandemic, I guess he could have come back if he'd wanted to. I saw the other day where a guy from Miami was fixing to get a 9th year of eligibility. Did you see that? University of Miami.
I saw that. He's pulling a Chris Winkie, having a family.
I mean, this sounds like minor league football now. Colleges sound like minor league football. That's right.
They're starting to develop that with the Rock.
Yeah,
they're putting that United Football League together, so you might get a lot of kids coming out earlier.
Yeah, I've been to several Senior Bowls, and they used to have it the weigh-in at the hotel down there. I guess it was the headquarters.
Oh yeah, the old Holiday Inn.
Well, across from the
right there
convention.
Downtown, right?
Yeah, right. Well, it was right across from the convention center, and I think they got a walkway there now.
That's the old Holiday Inn.
Yeah, and they do it now. They just kind of you can walk across to the convention center now, but back then they do it in a kind of I guess where people would sometimes come eat.
Well,
and you'd run in. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, no, you just meant.
No, I think.
You go ahead now.
Yeah, I'm going to intervene here, okay, guys? All right. Dale, you be quiet.
That being said, Dale, I was going to say, I could see why you would go to that old Holiday Inn because they got a bar up there at the top. It's open on Friday and Saturday.
I don't know what you're talking about. What's a bar? Is that like college?
You got to pass that to be a lawyer.
Oh, okay. Pass that to be a lawyer.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I understand now. I understand. Okay.
Oh.
All right. That sounds
I tell you what,
good.
he's going to get us in trouble. Hunter's going to get you in trouble, Dale.
Yeah.
You're going to have a brouhaha when you get home.
Okay.
What are you doing over there, Dale?
Oh, I'm just trying to find another question. Anyway.
Well, I think you got a little confused with that Tennessee whiskey up there, so.
Oh boy. Well, I'm sitting here. I've gone blind. I'm having an Alzheimer's moment. You ever have those? I'm not making light of it.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I've got a case of dementia.
Yeah. It's sitting in on me. Of course, I'm old enough to get it. You're still a young guy.
Well, but I'll tell you the greatest thing too about the Senior Bowl is it really gets the first image of what's going to happen in the upcoming draft and with the NFL Combine. I heard that the guy from Southern Miss, Frank Gore, that he got invited to the combine. That's the first USM that I've heard since Brownlee last year.
Yeah.
And so
I really like that guy.
See what happens.
Yeah, I think he can do a lot of things. I think he can do a lot of things. He'll be one of those. I'm not comparing him to Tyson Hill, but he might could do things like Tyson Hill. Yeah, he probably could
Sure,
quarterback,
sure,
but he can throw the ball decently.
He's got the experience throwing the football.
He sure does.
Definitely something that.
Yeah. We're going to get into the Saints in a minute, but what I was going to tell you, I really enjoyed going to the Senior Bowl because you meet a lot of old timers that are scouts now. And one time I ran into the general manager of the Saints and I asked him, I said, what y'all think, what you think you might get in the first round as far as position? I didn't ask for a name, because you've been hearing all names.
Sure.
And they're up on the stage being weighed, and you probably seen the weigh-ins. They don't have anything but shorts on, and
Sure.
and they're listed at 290, and they either at 335 or 240, and they list their height at 6'4", and they're really 6'2" when they get measured, and it was like, okay,
Not as big as we thought we were.
no wonder
I
he's
think that,
yeah.
I think that's what Bryce Young ran into. Bryce Young listed in the Alabama program at 6'1", when he's actually about 5'8". So,
Man, he looks small on that NFL field, doesn't he? Golly.
that's the truth on that.
Man, he didn't look that small at Alabama. It just shows you how big the guys are in the pros, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's certainly right, and I'll tell you that from seeing both of those guys. I mean, seeing those players on the sidelines in high school versus college versus pro, it's night and day.
Oh, I was going to tell you one conversation I had one down, and it was, to me, it's always been funny. Jerry Jones was down there, and he'd flown in, and this was a great thing because that was a year Ben Roethlisberger was going to come out, and that was the year that Dan Marino showed up. I didn't know how skinny his legs were. But anyway, they were all down there. But I asked Jones, I said, show me one of your rings, your Super Bowl ring there. And he's showing it to me. And he said, we got more fans down here in Mobile that like us than they do in Dallas. And I just thought that was a funny comment coming from Jerry Jones. But
Probably still does.
Yeah. But anyway, that's what he said to me.
And of course, because there's more of an overview and evaluation of what he's doing as an owner. Not necessarily more fans, but more people critical of him in his management style, at least in Dallas. So.
Well, Mike, Pittsburgh, the Rooney family, of course, owns it. But somebody asked him at a press conference yesterday, said, how are you involved in Tomlin hiring an offensive coordinator? He said, I'm just in on the meetings. He says, but Mike Tomlin is going to make this hire, and he needs to make the hire of the coordinators. This is his team, okay? And so, I'm going to give him what he wants. And, I always wondered after I heard that statement the other day, I wonder if Jerry Jones gets involved in who is hired as OC or DC or wide receivers coach.
Jerry Jones is the Dallas Cowboys deal. He makes whatever hire, whatever fire. He is the main guy. If you ever want a job with the Cowboys, it doesn't matter if you want it from janitor, whatever.
All right, listen.
Will come to him and ask. And that's the way it goes.
All right, listen, we got about 2 or 3 minutes. Tell us about your view of the Saints this year and where we're heading.
Who that?
Well, the New Orleans Saints really need to focus on getting some of the inner trenches, the offensive and defensive line. the New Orleans Saints have talent, of course, on the receiving end, the defensive backs. We had one of the best secondaries in the NFL this year. Problem is our O-line and the defensive line just didn't, they weren't there. They weren't providing pass rushing. They weren't providing enough blocking. And I'm not necessarily singling out any player, but I'm just telling you that's one of the things that they need to focus on, whether it be the draft, trade, whatever. Got a free agency, have to focus on picking up somebody or some players that can take advantage of the opportunity.
I got you. Should we blame everything on Derek Carr? I didn't think the receivers were that great this year.
Well, but it's just like every other position, or just like every other team in the NFL organization, it's always going to come down to your quarterback. Now, granted, there's only so much where the blame should be given, but, if you want to take on that role as the quarterback of your team, you definitely need to expect to have that scrutiny, either good or bad. It's a tough way to look at it, but everybody is blaming, of course, the Dallas Cowboys, who we just spoke about. What's the biggest problem everybody's continually saying is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott. Now, if the Cowboys would have gotten to the championship game, it would have been how well Dak Prescott's played. And it's your role, especially on America's team, to be, the guy that is going to be able to take the scrutiny or go after it. And Derek Carr just did not get the job done from what the Saints fans expected this year. That doesn't mean he's not going to do it in the future, but whether it be coaches, whether it be play calls, something's got to change, and that's what we're waiting to see.
Okay, 2 last questions. You answered yes or no. Okay, will John Gruden be with the Saints next year?
And I would tell you that, Dale, no. It's not because I haven't previously written about him potentially being with the organization. It's more or less because of his outgoing lawsuit against the NFL. And I think that he is really trying to get into that a little bit more than being able to call plays. But especially, I think he's given it some thought because of calling plays for a team that Roger Goodell is not the biggest fan of anyway. I think that would kind of give him the benefit. However, I don't think Coach Gruden is really that interested in it to that level right now.
I got you. All right, last question. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Just give us Kansas City or who they playing? San Francisco. San Francisco. So what do you who do you think will win, and who do you think will be what the score will be, and maybe the MVP?
Well, as far as it goes for my selection, it's kind of hard to pick against Kansas City because they have routinely been the underdog pretty much all year, and yet they've come out. And it's not really, it just doesn't really, it's hard to understand how they keep winning these games against teams that are a lot better than what they are, especially on the offensive side of the football. But because they are playing a strong defensive format, then, it's definitely just not able to, you're not really able to pick against them. And now I personally think that, they will probably pick Patrick Mahomes, either him or Travis Kelce as the MVP. Not necessarily because they played the best, but unless if somebody just comes out there and has a phenomenal, monstrous game, then they will probably name one of those two guys as the MVP. I do think San Francisco is the better team. If you just want my question about who has the best team in the game, I think that San Francisco has the better team. But if they fall behind like they did against Detroit, unlike Detroit, Kansas City's going to close the deal.
Yeah, I agree with you on that for sure. I hate to tell you this, but we are out of time, guys. I'm going to ask you we appreciate you again for being with us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to share with us and enlighten us a little bit about what's going on.
Marshall, I appreciate you guys a whole lot. I'm just getting about ready to get started covering some high school, some high school district tournament basketball, some soccer playoff, and then occasionally get up to Southern. And when the Pelicans shoot me a credential, I'll try to head up to one of their games. But it's a fun season down here right now because the weather is okay. But just gotta wait and see whenever I get up there to Southern, and maybe I can be on Dale's radar.
Yeah, we need to get together. I want to ask you to hold on just a minute. I want to let everybody to know that you can follow us during the week on our Facebook page at the Brouhaha, and we do catalog all of our shows on our YouTube channel, and you guessed it, at the Brouhaha. But for now, it's come to that time where it's time to say goodbye, Dale. Say it. Come on.
Goodbye, Dale.
We'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.